for a broader audience of policymakers, academics, directors and CEOs, and indeed practitioners. As you may already know, Ireland's National Lifelong Learning Strategy covers all phases of education, from early childhood care and education to primary and post-primary, further and indeed higher education and youth provision. To say that it spans a broad canvas would be an understatement. That's why, for the purposes of the regional seminars, and in order to engage in an in-depth exploration of the themes, Pobal decided to focus on just two thematic areas. One pertaining to community-based access to further and higher education, and the other focused on early childhood care and education and family learning. These two thematic areas were selected on the basis of their interrelationship with two of the EU lifelong learning priorities and the Irish priorities that correspond to them. The two regional seminars I mentioned earlier took place at the end of last year, one in Cork and one in Sligo. Detailed reports from them are available to be downloaded from the Pobal website and are also available at the registration desk here today. Among the main conclusions that emanated from the seminars and that impacted on the planning and design of today's conference was a recognition that seminar participants did not have a strongly developed awareness of the European or Irish lifelong learning priorities, or indeed how the work they were involved in on a daily basis connected with and contributed to the realisation of Ireland's lifelong learning objectives. This in turn led Pobal staff to suspect that lifelong learning may not be as alive and well as we would wish it to be, and that it may not be fully understood from a social inclusion and equality perspective, and that levels of awareness of lifelong learning appear to be underdeveloped and somewhat fragmented. These conclusions significantly informed the design of today's conference and the decision to explore lifelong learning across a continuum of 15 thematic areas in order to enrich, intensify and maximise the potential for exploration, dialogue, learning and awareness raising. This brings me to my third point, which is to say a few words about today's event. Our theme today, Life is for Learning, Learning is for Life, symbolises what we hope is a respectful and inclusive vision of education. A vision that is all-embracing and that recognises education in its broadest and most philosophical sense, situating it within a lifelong learning discourse as opposed to a paradigm or a framework. Our hope is that the theme is sufficiently broad and expansive to speak to the diverse range of sub-themes we have selected for you here today. Each one represents an aspect of lifelong learning from a social inclusion and equality perspective and on the cradle-to-grave life cycle continuum. Ladies and gentlemen, we want today to be more than an average conference experience. We wanted to leave a strong aftertaste, hopefully a pleasant one. We wanted to activate post-conference thoughts and insights, and we wanted to enable you to return to your work organisations that bit more aware and enthused about lifelong learning and your role and involvement in it. To help us achieve these ambitious outcomes, we've designed today on the basis of opening up a space for creative dialogue, for thinking outside the box, for joining up themes and experience, for reflection, for opportunity to generate new insights, and for the cross-fertilisation of thoughts and ideas. We've selected an impressive array of speakers for you, from our ministerial address to the contextual scene-setting opening keynote addresses of Niall Crowley and Kathleen O'Neill, to what I know will be a thought-provoking and memorable closing address from Fergus Finlay. Indeed, one of our most courageous and esteemed writers, broadcasters, social activists, and a relentless campaigner for social justice. To help animate and enliven our roundtable thematic discussions, we are privileged to be joined by 15 leading experts in various aspects of education. I suspect they will not only lead our roundtable discussions, but will also offer unique and indispensable views and thoughts. Added to this wonderful collection of talent and expertise, We are delighted to be joined by 5 special expert guests: Dr. Tony Crooks, Miss Anne Clark, Dr. Brian Maguire, Miss Marie Carroll and Mr. Pat Halley, all of whom have generously agreed to act in the roles of observers and commentators by going on the balcony. This method will enable them to be separate from the specific action of the conference and to have an overview of what is happening in terms of mood, ambience, emerging themes, connections, cross-learning, etc. Later in the morning, we will watch what I personally think is an extremely moving, candid, honest, and somewhat emotional DVD, which was commissioned by Pobble for the conference. It captures many positive aspects of education, while also relating experience that is about struggle and alienation from the educational system. For me, what stands out more than anything else in this wholesome and uplifting DVD is the sheer power, value, and meaning of education and its ability to transform lives for the better, something that can be all too easily forgotten in the scramble for points within the meritocracy of formal education. The great thing about watching this DVD is that it will surround us with the presence of our learners. It will literally bring them into the room to serve as a reminder to us that this conference is really about them. We want to ensure that their experiences inform our thinking and exchanges here today. I think that our conference programme and design offers us an opportunity and indeed a challenge to actively engage from the basis of our experiences, be it as a provider, practitioner, policy maker, consumer, observer, critic or champion. All of these roles and the experiences they bring with them will greatly illuminate and deepen the debate and discussion here today. We want that depth of discussion and we strongly encourage your fullest engagement. At the end of the day, our overriding objective is to raise awareness of lifelong learning in the Irish context and to stimulate you to hold on to and keep that awareness when you cross the threshold from the conference back into the routine of your own organisations. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by saying that I look forward to listening to and joining in the deliberations of the day. I hope the conference meets your individual expectations, and I sincerely hope that you take something meaningful and lasting away from your participation here today.